Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Joining me on the phone from The Alarm, it is Mike Peters. He's got a new album. Well, in fact, it's a mega project called Stream Hurricane of Change. And of course, you should check that out. But before we get to that, let us say hello to the one and only Alain Niven. Bonjour, Monsieur Alain. How are you?
Bonjour, Monsieur. Ça va?
Yes. Are you a...
Et vous?
Yo, yes. Je suis bien. Yes, I am fantastic. But are you a fan of The Alarm? Does the manager of Guns N' Roses even realize who the heck The Alarm is?
The former temporary manager of Guns N' Roses, who sometimes is prone to saying, I was there during the productive years. Yes, of course I knew who The Alarm were. And in point of fact, I kind of like them for the fact that they were really trying hard to say something worthwhile, that they had a slightly political bent, which I appreciated. And, you know me, I like people to express their sense of society and politics through their music, that I'm a lover of Lennon, that I'm a lover of Bob Marley. And I noticed that by tweet, even Axl Rose is slowly getting to the point of expressing his political opinion, which is something I'm very happy to see. Although,
are you really?
Wait. Let me finish. He's 30 years late to the party. But when you do express your politics, there are going to be some people who are going to have contrary opinion. Did you have something you wish to mention?
Well, two things, actually. First of all, I'm going to have to start introducing you as the guy who didn't manage Bon Jovi. That's going to be the new intro. But second of all, speaking of former band members that are tweeting, so Axl tweeted out a whole bunch of stuff. Rolling Stone, Spin Magazine, and a whole bunch of others made a big issue out of it. But another guy that used to be under your purview, Mark Kendall, guitarist Mark Kendall of Great White, who his talent is abounds. We cannot say that, but he tweeted the following earlier this week, and it says, he, by the way, is not looking for a hurricane of change, I guess. He tweeted out, China spread the disease, Democrats spread the lies, media spread the panic, they crashed the economy, all to destroy our president. Remember in November. That was one heck of a tweet, I gotta say. Any thoughts about your former guitarist?
Well, how many words did he have there?
Well, he didn't actually use words. He
Count
took
the words.
He took a picture and he
words,
posted the picture. So let's see. Count the words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. In 24 words, he posted that thing. Now, luckily I'm Canadian, so I stay out.
That'll tell you one thing immediately. If there are 24 words there, then we know that it took him 24 weeks to formulate that, given the speed and alacrity of his intelligence. I paused for a moment because there are a couple of things in there. Yes, the virus did come from China. Yes, I have my suspicions of whether a protein or a biological entity actually comes from nature or is by design. And yes, I'm not sure if we're just talking politics when we're looking at Mr. Trump, because I take exception that my creativity, which Mr. Kendall still utilizes to pay his rent with, associates the band name with a person who I think is absolutely despicable. And this is not politics. This is assessing a person on their actual merit. In Trump, we're talking about a thief. We're talking about a liar. We're talking about a person who has knowingly stiffed countless people who are involved in projects with him in Atlantic City. There is plenty of evidence to suggest that he has been washing Russian money through his condos that he sells in the Trump Tower since 1982. There was a person who had an office in the Trump Tower just down the corridor from Trump who was a known associate of the Russian mafia. We're dealing with a liar and a crook. And lying and crookery are two things I do not want associated with my creativity. I could go one more step, but so maybe stop me or let me go the one more step. But as you can tell,
Well, perhaps.
I'm upset about it.
We call it verklempt.
If Mark wants to express his personal opinion, go ahead and do it. Your judgment has always been brilliant. Let's talk about, the guy Stephen Williams he brought into the band, whose only reason for being there was because he made you look like Johnny Depp. You bring a French guy in with a French accent and a French vibrato to sing songs that were absolutely handmade for an absolute all-American great singer, Jack Russell. And then you replace him with somebody who's got all the personality of a Las Vegas tribute band. Brilliant, Mark, as ever.
Well, I don't mean to deviate, but speaking of great singers with Jack Russell, did you see his Toto Hold the Line cover? And I'm not trying to deviate too much, but that was brilliant. That was a brilliant cover that Jack did.
He sang it with Robin McCauley, and what I really liked about it was the way their voices worked together, and I thought their vibe was really fun together and really cool. And they should do a couple more things, Robin and Jack.
Yeah, they really
do. It's
a big digression.
That digresses entirely, and obviously that's your hope and intent.
No. In fact, what I want to ask though is, back in the '60s, being political and writing about what happened in Ohio and Vietnam War, and it was very much, I guess, needed for society in a sense to sort of say, hey, what's going on here? But at this point, should artists like Mark and stuff just stay away? I mean, I know we're going to say First Amendment. Okay, forget that. Forget rights. Just in terms of marketing and branding, don't you want to bring as many people under the tent as possible? Shouldn't sometimes you just say nothing? I mean, is that wrong to say? I
think one of the things that distinguishes an entertainer from an artist, as an entertainer will be apolitical and appeal to everybody and be at pains to appeal to everybody, whereas an artist has a point of view and they stand by it. And that is an intrinsic and essential element to being an artist, is having a disposition and standing by it. And I respect that more. And it goes back to me to the sense of what a troubadour was all about, and the legacy of the troubadour and the tradition of the troubadour. And before we had transistor radios and we had any form of radio or television or computers, we had musicians who went from hamlet to city to village to town, who sang the songs that society recognized within itself, that had a point of view and a social point of view, and they were a social glue and a unifying force in their own right. And that aspect of the troubadour and the artist, I think, is valuable and essential and the center of gravity of it all. Yes, I always wanted Axl to have a point of view because I thought he was a big enough performer that he could actually use his performance as a basis of expressing a point of view. And I had a fundamental faith that any point of view that he'd express would basically be a blue-collar point of view, because rock and roll is the voice of the working man. It's the voice of the disenfranchised. So, yeah, I was hoping that Axl would take that mantle on. They take it on in tweets these days instead of songs. But, with Mr. Kendall, I got to say, I'm sorry, dude, this is not about policy. This is about ethics and character. And if you stand up there and endorse a person who is so obviously deficient in ethics and character, then I'm going to ask, what is this, birds of a feather? That we just not only have fake news, but we have fake presidents and we have fake guitar players. And that's my point. And you can tell I'm a little bit pissed about this.
You're a little worked off, which is great, by
Yeah.
the way, that we have Mike Peters on, because you definitely sounded the alarm today. See, look at that. It all ties
Look
in
at that.
magically. It all ties in magically. Should we get
No,
over?
it ties in with your very deft expertise at your very good craft. Let's get over to the alarm. I've sounded it.
Yes, you have. Let's get over to Mike Peters talking about Stream Hurricane of Change. Here is the one, the only Mike Peters. We are speaking with the Alarm's Mike Peters. Mike, a great pleasure to talk to you again. How are you?
I'm great, Mitch. Thank you. Good to be back on the show. We've survived the lockdown here in Wales, and we're still under some of the impositions, but it's easing off now, and the sun is shining, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to the end of the tunnel. But let us talk about this new exciting album that you've put out, Stream Hurricane of Change. I've had a chance to listen to it, and I find the concept not only refreshing, but just brilliant in terms of what you've done. So there's spoken word where you sort of talk about stuff and talk about the songs, and you've got this stream of consciousness going on, and then there's new music, there's some of the classic songs redone, reimagined. Talk to me about this concept and working with this trilogy of albums that you did.
Yeah, it fell into place really because it was a 30th anniversary period and a time to look back at those songs. And I had done that with our previous original first two albums with Declaration and Strength, and they'd thrown up some interesting angles. And my approach is really to say, well, what would happen if we'd wrote those songs today or recorded them today? What would they sound like? The original 80s recordings are always going to exist. They're a timestamp of that period in our lives. But the songs move on with you through life, and they change in the eyes of the fans and the hearts of the fans when they come to be part of their lives, when they're going through certain situations like getting married or having children or losing parents or going through life and making drastic changes, having to survive. The songs take on a new life, and they do for me as a writer. So I went back to the original sequence of Eye of the Hurricane and Change, because they were both really wrapped up in a similar time frame towards the late 1980s. And when I looked at them, it straight away, the thing that leapt out to me, which I didn't realize at the time, was the first song created was the last song to be released on the Change album. It was the last song on the album, New South Wales. And I realized that was the first song we debuted as The Alarm in 1986 on the pathway to a new album, which became Eye of the Hurricane. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I read the lyrics, and I thought, well, there's a story here that I'm reading. This isn't necessarily me. It's a character. And he's walking home alone past a church full of mourning souls. He's obviously at the end of an era. And I thought, where's he going? Where is this person traveling to? And I looked through the list of songs from the two albums, and there was a Newtown Jericho. That was a destination, a song on Eye of the Hurricane. And so I read those lyrics straight. I thought, they carry on. The story continues. And at the time, I had some songs that were from that period, which we never recorded. I never even presented to the band. And they were in the lyric book that I was looking back on. And, that flows from here. And all of a sudden, a really autobiographical story presented it to myself. But it's a story of The Alarm as well. It's about leaving a small town at the end of an era. It's about finding the courage to strike out and realize your ambition wherever that may take you and wherever that destiny may lie. And it's only through going through those experiences that you can really understand who you truly are. When we left Wales as The Alarm in the 80s, it was a form of escapism. And when we got to America and people asked us, what's Wales like? And we started describing it and relating it to the radio DJs and the journalists, presenters like yourself, we thought, actually, Wales sounds amazing when you put it in these terms and you talk to these people. And so through that journey of discovery, we actually found ourselves coming back to Wales and fall in love with the place where we'd left. And it's a whole life cycle that really brings you back to the beginning. And that's where you find out who you really are. And so that's really where the story and the idea of it was born, in that transition of songs from looking at them as 1980 songs and instead looking at them as songs for today.
Let me pick up on two things there. When you look back on these and you see that there's a continuity and that there's a story, almost like reading a book, was that sort of a serendipitous kind of discovery where you went, "Wow, look at that! This tells a story," or have you always approached songwriting in, "I need to tell a tale"? You know, because there's a lot of bands that just go, "Hey, girls, girls, blah blah blah, shake your moneymaker," and there's not a lot of substance.
Yeah.
Were you always concerned about substance and telling a story and saying something with your songs, and not just, "Hey, let's rock and roll all night and party every day"?
Yeah, I think I've always tried to have some permanence into the message or the communication that's coming out in the songs. Always tried to take it seriously. You know, coming from the background I did of seeing punk rock happen, which was all about a message and empowering people to become themselves. That was the DNA the Alarm was built upon, and so it's always been in the music. But with Eye of the Hurricane as the beginning of this cycle of music that we're talking about, I found that a difficult record to make. It was right in the second part of the 80s. The dynamic in the band had changed, and so instead of following my lead like we'd always, let's go to London, guys, let's make a single, let's try and get a manager, let's go on, let's get on the road. All of a sudden, when everyone wanted to say, well, no, let's stop here. I want to take control of this part of where we're going, and I want us to do this, and we don't want to do any more of your songs, Mike. We just want to write group compositions. All those forces came into play, and it became a very tenuous time, and I felt I was writing under a cloud. A lot of my energy was going to try and keep the band together, keep everybody happy, and so I felt very distracted in the making of Eye of the Hurricane. And yeah, I thought this is disconnected from what went on with the Strength album, the Declaration album, but it's still valid. But it feels like it's their music or someone else's music at the time. And I thought, well, this is just how we're evolving and we're changing. We've got to get used to it, and we'll discover the meaning of it all when we get it out on the road, and we start to live in it inside that music. And so it was only by looking back on it, by chance really, in this 30th anniversary, that I found a way into the music that had been hidden from me at the time or had been blurred. And I feel more comfortable with these songs than I ever did before. I now know why I wrote Rain in the Summertime, why the lyrics were there, because they were part of a story that I couldn't actually see at the time. And when I sing it in Stream, when it comes in that part of the story, after at a time when the character in the tale actually finds real love for the first time in his life and sing, it is like when the rain after an intense period of heat of running so fast to get away from all the things that are harmful in your life, and then you meet that person and the light goes on, you think the rain comes out, you wash away all that tension, and that it's really enabled that song. I can't wait to go and sing it again in the future with that knowledge, rather than just it being a part of the song cycle. Because when I came to sing Rain in the Summertime in the very first instance, it was the last song contributed towards the album. We were working with John Porter, the producer who'd recorded How Soon Is Now with the Smiths. And he'd asked me when we played him all the demos, have you got anything else you haven't played me that might be interesting? I said, look, there's one little jam session of this half a song that we put together in the rehearsal room. And I played him the cassette, and he goes, that's really interesting. Leave it with me, Mike. And he went and created a whole arrangement in his producer suite using a drum machine and all this. And he copied what we had on this cassette. And when he played that, I thought, that's amazing. And the scat lyrics that I was singing in this jam session were, I love to feel the rain in the summertime. That was my subconscious who drove those. I didn't write them down. They just came out. And I thought, I can't sing that. That's not the Alarm, I tried everything to change the lyrics on the microphone. And every time I tried, no, I want to feel faith, anything. John Porter said, not as good as Rain in the Summertime, right? That's your first instinct took you there, and that is killer. And I gave his, yeah, okay. But so to me, it just felt like that was a pop song that we'd written as the Alarm. And it was only by going back to it 30 years later that I realised it was part of something my subconscious was trying to tell me, something that my subconscious felt wounded at that time. You know, when all your band members turn around to say, right, Mike, we don't want to record any more of your songs that have driven the last 2 albums. We want to stand in a room and create something out of nothing. You feel a bit, it's like, whoa, okay, you feel hurt. And so I didn't realize how much I pushed down and suppressed in myself at that time in the history of the band. And I just got on with the job and always kept this, okay, great, let's try it, let's work it out, it's all going to happen somehow. And in the end, we went back to all the songs I had in my bag anyway, and we had recorded all the Mike Peters songs, and off we went. But it was still, the damage was done, and so part of me felt suppressed during that writing. So to go back to it and actually realise I was firing on all cylinders on that record, I was contributing to the depth and the integrity of the band. It's all there. There was too many politics and too many ramifications going on for me to be the true artist I know I was capable of in that record, because I was, like you say, trying to deal with the politics of keeping a band together at the same time as be a creative musician. So I discovered a lot through going into the stream and see where it was going to take me. And it's taken me to places I'm really surprised by the outcomes.
Well, it almost sounds like you're getting closure on what was going on in the 80s, but I want to take you up on two things. You mentioned coming from Wales to the United States and doing a lot of radio and a lot of press and a lot of touring. And as a kid back then, I got to see, of course, the strength videos and the declaration videos on Much Music in Canada and, of course, MTV when I would go down to the States. How important was the U.S. market? Because you look at some bands, whether it's Thunder, whether it's Status Quo, whether it's they never really seem to get it together in the States, and they never really seem to have made a push to get accepted in the States. But you came over and you did these tours. And how important was the U.S. market for The Alarm?
Oh, it was huge. It was a dream come true. Mitch, we got lucky. You know, we came to America before we'd made anything of a name for ourselves in the UK. There was no hype no one waiting at the airport when we got off the plane in Los Angeles for that first day. We were an unknown band and as unknown as you could be. And we got there because we'd played a couple of gigs with U2. We'd become friends with them. They'd taken us back to the hotel. We'd done a lot of dates with them on the war tour in the UK. And then when they went to America and that album took off, and they were invited to extend their American tour and do a second run and do the Red Rocks gig and go and play their first arena shows in America, they said to Paul McGuinness, their manager, we'll do all that, but we are tired. But it would really help us if we had some friends and an opening band that we knew and we liked. So that was The Alarm. So we got the call out of the blue to go to America, and it was incredible. We were great mates with U2. You know, they took us on the tour bus with them. We played soccer with them. We talked about music, books, films, everything. It was like two gangs of friends out on the road together having a brilliant time. And we did have a brilliant time. It was amazing. And because I think our first gig was in San Francisco, and we just walked out on stage. Nobody knew who we were. And by the time I said, look, this is our first ever gig in America, and by the time we finished, we had the whole place on its feet. And there was no journalist there with some preconception from the NME or Sound or Melody Maker that this is the greatest British band that's ever been since The Who. We had none of that hype. Everyone took us on face value. In fact, when we got accepted onto American Bandstand during that first touring period, and we made our first TV appearance with The Cutting Edge on MTV. And when we were in America, we actually got asked to go on Top of the Pops in Britain, and we flew home, recorded a Top of the Pops show for the BBC, and flew straight back to carry on touring in the United States. And the presenter in Britain said this band were on tour in America 2 days ago. They've flown here, and now here's their new single. It's called 68 Guns. And when we came back a couple of weeks later after the broadcast, everyone thought we were an American band. Nobody knew we were from real North Wales. So we snuck up on a lot of people, and a lot of it is down to that lucky break of we got through U2. And, whereas I've seen it so many times since with Oasis or Simple Minds, or all these bands that come over with a huge press junket that says they're the greatest thing, they're going to storm America, and everyone goes to America. Well, come on then, prove it. We just didn't have to overcome that kind of wall, so we got lucky in a way, and we obviously we loved America. We loved meeting American people. Some of my best friends I met from coming to America and Canada, and we've been very lucky to have been gifted this opportunity to travel so much and meet so many great people. And again, I think there's sort of a skepticism in Britain as well about, certainly British musicians, that they feel like, oh, when they go to the USA and North America, they have to, we have to be nice to the DJ or shake his hand or something, or her hand, and it's like, well, that's just being pleasant human beings, courteous. Surely you don't have to be the rock star that it gets paraded in front of a skeptical NME or British music journalist DJ who's trying to unravel your cool. That's not how it works. So we just got lucky. We loved America from the moment we got off the plane, and loved the opportunity to go back there every year. In 1987, we put the miles in as well. That was one of the great things when we did that first tour with U2. It wasn't just LA, New York, Boston. It took us into the Bible Belt. We were playing Oklahoma and all these kind of places that people don't normally go to. And so we saw a lot of great places in the USA. And we were always about getting to the people. When we came and we had the opportunity, we did a lot of dates in Canada, on the Ida Hurricane tour. We came up and played in Calgary and places like that. And that's always stood us in good stead with those audience members who know we've, at some point in the history of the band, we've made that effort to get out to those places where people actually really live and love their music.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this then. You have this tour with U2. You're all, like you said, you're all over the place. You're gifted this tour. First album does great. Second album does great. It's all, again, like I said, it's all over MTV and Much Music. By the time you get to Eye of the Hurricane, why then do the other band members say, hey, this is broke, we need to fix it? It sounded to me like it was actually working pretty good. So why was there this inner turmoil of, hey, we need to not do Mike Peters songs, we need to be more? Why didn't they just say, man, this is great, we played stadiums all summer, let's keep going? Shame on them.
I couldn't understand it myself. I can remember coming into rehearsals 2 weeks after we played at Wembley Stadium with Queen, and we'd just done UCLA and gone out live all across the world, and then we got Dave Sharp said, right, Mike, we're not doing any more of your songs, and it turned into this whole warfare, and it went into the Evening Standard. It ran a piece of Dave Sharp's girlfriend and said the Alarm on the point of breaking up, and they had this big fight over the songs, and it instead of it being something that we could deal with privately, it became public. And in those days there was no internet, but this story that started in the newspaper in Britain went on every rock syndication you could possibly imagine, that the Alarm were breaking up, news. It went everywhere, and we ended up having a good long period where we tried to work this situation out, and it only got resolved in the end by our record label, IRS Records, and Steve Tannett, our A&R man, saying, well, look, why don't you go and do all your songs, Dave? Mike will go and do all his. Everyone else can chip in with their songs, and then I'll choose the best songs for the album. Okay? And so everyone thought, great, an independent arbitrator of all our songs. And of course, we put all our demos in, and Steve Tannett, the A&R, goes, right, we're doing all of Mike's songs and one of Dave's. And that's what it took to resolve the situation. So we ended up back at square one, having seriously damaged the career outlook of the band and the timing. If we released either Hurricane or an album that we'd made with all the positive energy that we had going on in 86, in January 87, which was the original plan, the Alarm would have put an album out, the third album, potentially their biggest album, before In Excess released Kick, before U2 released the Joshua Tree, before Simple Minds did Once Upon a Time. We'd have been the leading band of our generation, and we'd have been building on the momentum we created with all these massive shows we played up to that time. Instead, our record came out after the summer. It came out in October. Our manager had been fired. The other members of the band didn't want to carry on with our manager, and it was 3 against 1, and they voted him out. And he was very important to us as well. And so we really, and our record company was IRS Records. We were never on the same record label twice, because IRS used to flit around. We started with A&M, then we went to MCA, then we ended up at EMI, and so we always had a different team of people around the record every single time. So we never had that continuity some of the other bands did. But that's created a very interesting background and backstory to what the Alarm is, and I think that's partly why we've able to survive this long, because we've got a really colourful story. And
you do.
Even anything that's all the challenges just made it stronger ultimately, and we never we were never a band that wanted to chase fame. We didn't want to be a pop band in that sense. We wanted to have some integrity, and we were ready to die for our music and wherever that would take us. So, and this is where we are. We're still very popular. We get to tour every year. We're like a big family. All the original members still become involved in things. We've all been on our Big Night in lockdown broadcasts. Dave Sharp plays us on the tours when we go out. Eddie comes to the gathering. Nigel plays us in San Francisco. Everyone is still linked together, and in a good way, in a positive way that our fans can see, and they respect that. And we are, like I say, we are a big family, and we're about to celebrate our 40th anniversary next year.
Yeah, which will be great. But I'm just having a hard time wrapping my head around it. It's July 12th, 1986. You're opening for Queen at Wembley, and Dave and Eddie are going, yeah, this is not working. We need to write some songs. This is not working. It's like, what are you talking about?
It wasn't Eddie. It was David and Nigel, really.
David and Nigel. Yeah, David and Nigel are looking at each other.
Yeah.
It's not working. Sure it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, Mitch, I couldn't understand. I thought this would go away in a minute. This is silly. I walked into rehearsal with all these songs in my bag, and I don't want to hear any of them. We're going to jam. I said, well, that's what you two do. We're not that. And for me, I'd always been my ambition as a musician was to be a songwriter. That was my thing. I wanted to be one of those guys in brackets after the song title. And that was what I wanted, and I didn't want to give that up, just to be an anonymous member of the band. I wanted to be considered as a songwriter because I put my life and soul on the line for the songs I've written.
Well, all right, and I know we're going to run out of time. We have till 1 o'clock. We got about 5 more minutes, so I'm going to ask you this. You have said previously in interviews that the Who's Quadrophenia is your desert island disc. If there was a nuclear assault and there was only one album to survive, that's the one you want. But Stream, Hurricane and Change has also been considered somewhat of your own kind of quadrophenia. Tell me about the importance of that album, and then having critics say, hey, you know what? Your new album sort of reminds me of that. That's a huge compliment.
It's a huge compliment, yeah. And look, I think if you connect with these records and you can see yourself in the storyline, it can carry it deep into your life. And I certainly, when I got quadrophenia, I wanted to be a mod straight away, and I wanted to be like Jimmy, the positive sides of Jimmy, and I wanted to be in a band where people would come and see you and pin their hopes and their night on you, and they would be coming to see you thinking, I'm going to feel better about myself tomorrow because I'm going to see the band I love and hear the songs that have become a part of my life. And so I think with Stream, Hurricane and Change, I wish we could have made that record like it is now in 1987. If we'd come out of that, maybe it would be upheld alongside Quadrophenia as a masterpiece. But it's been such a long time coming. But again, it's got a life of its own. I was being approached to stage it at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I've been approached from other theatrical festivals to stage it, because in January we recreated the whole concert at the Gathering. We staged a performance of Stream, Hurricane and Change with the band, but with all actors on the stage. We had a narrator telling the story, so I could stay on the stage and be a musician, a singer, and interact with the audience without having to be in character like the storyline demands. And we have the whole audience was immersed in the concert. They got dressed. We asked them to dress in a certain way so they could feel like they were part of the ensemble. We had acting going on in the crowd, on the stage, on screens. It was incredible. And luckily, we decided to film it at the last minute, not with a million cameras, but just managed to take control back of the tapes, because sadly, the guy who came in to film and direct the filming, he died about a week later, which was really sad. And it's only just now his estate been able to clear up the confusion of all his master tapes, and we've been able to get the film tapes of this immersive version of the Stream Hurricane of Change. So hopefully I'll be able to put a film together that can really convey what the depth that's in this project and where it might go in the future when we interact with more theatrical agencies and we see what's there. And if I think this is a record that will be around with Mike Pete's New Alarm for a long time to come. And it won't be at every show we play, but there'll be certain times when we say, you know what, we're going to play Stream Hurricane of Change special night here or in a theatre here for a week. So there's a lot to it. And I think that's, again, it's taken us into that idiom of Quadrophenia, Tommy, War of the Worlds, those kind of concept albums that are out there. And hopefully it's given a good name to the idea of a concept album, because they're usually frowned upon these days. But so hopefully it'll allow people to go back in and listen to Quadrophenia and Tommy and all those other records that have got some concept hung around them.
Absolutely. And I know we're out of time, but I'll just say this. Had it been released in 1988, this probably would be considered a masterpiece concept album. And I'll remind the folks, Mike and his wife have The Alarm, The Big Night In, which you can watch on YouTube. And also a Record Store Day, September 26, 2020, Celtic Folklore. Those words are so hard for me to pronounce. Live is coming out, 10 previously unreleased recordings from the tour back in 1988. And on that, as we say in Montreal, Mike, merci. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Merci, Mitch. Thank you for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Cheers. Merci. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye, Mitch.
This has been Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. For more exclusive content and interviews, subscribe on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, and many more. Follow Mitch on all the socials, especially Twitter, @Mitch Lafon, and on Instagram, @Mitch_Lafon. Get your Mitch merch now at loudtracks.com/Mitch.